Hello and welcome to yet another episode on how to learn Excel through an online project. So, in our previous episode, we have been covering few of the basics which are very critical. And in the same line, there are few things left which we need to learn. And in today's episode, we'll cover those basics so that from the next episode, we can start building the application together. Welcome. So, let us start with a recap of what we have learned in our previous video. We have started learning about how we can create a worksheet and how we can rename a worksheet and how we can give a different color to our specific worksheet and how to hide or show a worksheet. Similarly, when we were talking about the cells, we have also gone through what is a cell and what is a cell address, how to use the cell address, etc. And we also learned about the rows and columns and what is the column number which is mentioned in alphabet and what is a row number which is a numeric number. And we also learned about how to insert a column, insert a row, resize a column, and how to hide or show a row or column. Everything we have learned. Yet another thing we learned is about the merge and split of cells and how to use the format painter and how to copy the content from one cell to other including the format. And we also learned extensively about the type of data which we can use in our Excel. Now it is time for us to start learning about simple formulas and then proceed to how to create your data in a tabular structure and proceed further. Let us jump directly to the course. Let us start with simple formulas. So, first we will learn about how to use simple formulas for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And then we will also learn about how to find a percentage. And then we will talk about the other things like how to use a cell reference to find to implement a formula. Let's start with that. Any formula is started with an equal to symbol. Okay. For example, suppose if I want to add two numbers, I will start with, let me put here, equal to, for example, I am going to add two numbers, simple numbers, 2 plus 4. If I say enter, so it will automatically calculate the value. Let me just make it bold and big so that you can understand it better. So it calculates the value. And how do you know what is the formula used in this? If you go to the formula bar, so this section is called a formula bar where you will be able to identify what is the formula you have entered. Now, if you are clicking, double click on this particular cell, or if you go to the cell and press the key F2, you will be able to edit the formula. So yet another way for you to edit the formula is to go to directly to the formula bar where you can do whatever formula editing you would like to do. The formula bar is not only for you to edit the formulas, even if you are having a text which you want to edit, you can go and edit it here. So if you want to see it more bigger, you just keep your cursor over there and expand. So you will be able to see more area in the formula bar for you to understand a complex formula and edit it better. I'm reverting it back. Okay. So what if I want to add more number into my formula? So I can do even this. So plus 10. So now it is 16. The same thing is applicable if you are going to subtract two numbers. So I start with equal to, I'm going to subtract 10 minus 7. So I'm expecting 3. So the answer is 3. So let me use the format painter again to use the same format for all the rows down below. So now if I'm typing something, so it will be in the same font. This is another thing you need to learn about. Okay. So if I have to multiply two numbers, so I'm multiplying it by, so the multiplication operator in Excel is asterisk or a star, we call it. So it is 2 star 20 equal to 40. Okay. If I am to divide the two numbers, I divide it 30 divided by 15 and I'm expecting the answer 2. So it is coming. Similarly, suppose if I'm dividing 30 divided by 70 and I got the answer as 0.42, it's a decimal place. And if I want to find the percentage of it, you just go and press the percentage. So it will calculate the percentage and show you. So far, in all our formulas, so in a cell, we have been entering a number. What if I want to calculate based on the values available in a cell? Okay. For example, I'm having a cell here. Let me color this cell so that we understand what we are where we are working on. So I'm coloring it with light blue and making it here. So I have a value here called 10 and I have a value here called 15. Now here I want to find the sum or I want to find the addition of these two values. Here is where it is very important to know your cell address and you need to use it. So I'm pressing the equal to as it is. So then I'm first selecting G4. This is G4. Okay, and then I'm using the plus symbol and I'm using the H4. If you see, the color is also different. So the border color of G4 is blue and here the G4 is coming as blue and the border color of H4 is red. So here also it is coming as red and if I press enter, my formula is calculated. So what if I'm changing this number from 15 to 25. So my total also will change immediately. So I'm going to keep it here. Okay. Similar thing we can do for your subtraction also. Let me use the format painter to do the same formatting for all. And let me just make all these things as bold and a little bigger font so that you can understand it better. So now I'm changing this color to here so that you know. So these are all the parameters what you are going to use for the calculation and this is the result. So let us say this is A, this is B and this is result for example. Now similar way I'm going to subtract one number from other. So for me the A is 40 and B is 10 and here I want A minus B, that is 40 minus 10. So I can use equal to symbol. Either I can go and click, Excel will automatically provide you the cell number after you press the equal to. So suppose if you are not, I'm not going to use the equal to and I'm simply pressing here, nothing will happen. So as soon as I press equal, and then here, so it understands that this guy is going to write a formula and I need to help and it provides my cell reference automatically. So I'm using the minus symbol and I'm going to do the next value. I can do that. So if I have to use, suppose if I'm having some other number here, 40 and I'm so 80, okay, 80 and if I'm using it the formula here like 80 minus 40, sorry, 80 minus 40 and then minus 10. So it automatically gives a value. First it subtracts 40 from 80, that is equal to 40, and then from that 40 it subtracts 10 and that result is 30. Okay. So similar, so the same thing if I'm multiplying 3 by 9, I say so G5 star. If I'm using the arrow, automatically it goes here. So it gives 27. So if you are familiar with your cell address and you want to use it directly, Suppose I'm here, I'm using 20, and then I'm dividing it by 2. I can type also. So I can go here, and I know that my it is G6 divided by, so the forward slash is the symbol used for dividing, and I'm using H6. I'm typing all those things, and you can get the answers too. Okay. So I don't need to, we don't need to go deep into it. So if I'm having 45 divided by 75, and I'm getting the answer like 45 divided by 75, and I'm getting a value as zero point 0.6, and I'm going and making it as percentage. The 60 percentage is calculated. Now let us see how we can use the formula in some other ways. In this screen, I created a simple table. So this is the mark obtained by a student in all his subjects. He's a good student, so he scored good marks in all the subjects. Now, first thing what I want is to find the total marks he has obtained. So for that, Excel is having a formula called sum, so which you can implement it through multiple ways. Let's see one by one. So the first method is very simple. You go to the sum here, editing screen, editing menu. Here you have sum here. If you click on this sum, automatically it will include the formula called sum, and it will select the range of data for which you need to find the sum. So it automatically finds what are the numbers above it until it finds a text or a blank. Okay. So it has calculated his total mark as 468. Suppose I want to know how many number of rows here we have. If I want to know the number of subjects in it, I want to know how many number of subjects are there in this examination. So I can use a formula called count. I go here and say count numbers, and automatically it selects and press enter. It calculates the total number of subjects or the total number of rows with numbers available in this range of selected cells. I want to know what is the maximum mark he has obtained. So I can do by this way. Go here and say max, and it automatically selects. And you can see, you know very well by seeing it, he scored 100 in mathematics, and that is the highest mark. And the same way, if you want to know the minimum marks, delete it and go here and say minimum and select it. If I don't want to use this formula which is readily available. I want to do it everything manually, and I want to know the. I let me just do a summary here. I say total marks. At this cell, I want to find the sum of the marks he has scored. So I press equal to as and type sum and open a bracket, and then I select the first value and drag the cursor, drag your mouse until the last, and you can press enter. Excel will automatically include the right bracket, and it will give you the total marks. And I want to know the average marks he has scored in this examination. I want to calculate the average. Say press here, and I say average and select the same thing, and I close the bracket this time and enter. So 93.6 is the average mark yes score. Okay, I want minimum, so I select min and select this, and I want max. Everything can be calculated over here. To learn what else we can do with the formula, we will enhance this particular table to have more data. So first thing what we are going to do is, like, instead of just making it as mark, let us make it as a mark for multiple semester. So we have created a table with semester for more marks. So as we have learned yesterday, so we'll organize these particular columns according to the size of the column according to the data size by selecting all these columns and pressing double click. So now there is one data here which is a little longer. So let me just drag it down to make it. Now I want a header for these marks. Select all these columns and merge it and say marks obtained. Now I have marks for 4 different semesters. So there are few things which I want to find. First, what I want is a total of all the marks. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm selecting all these columns, use the format painter and click here so that I'm getting the same format as like this. And then I'm going to select all these columns and make it as bold. That it looks little better for me. And next thing what I'm going to do, I am going to give a different color for it. So I give a blue color and select these columns and give a border around. So I have a small table now with some marks for all the 4 semesters and the total. Now, how do I find the total of it? So we already learned about sum and we have looked at it in to add data in a row. So how do you make the same thing for a column? Same, I use if I use the sum, so it automatically finds the sum of all the data in columns. I found one. Now I want the same total formula applied to all these rows below. How can I do that? So simple. If I'm there are multiple ways. Let's see one by one. If I'm selecting this formula, right click and say copy, and I select to the next one and say paste. So this is paste. So the value will be calculated based on the formula which is available in the previous row or the source what has been copied. So if I want to say there is yet another way to copy the formula and paste it in all other rows here. That is, I select this column and drag down. 1 minute. I select the column here, and as soon as I move my cursor to the bottom side of the cell, I will get a crossbar, and I can hold it by clicking the left mouse button and then drag to all the rows where I want to copy the same formula. I copy it. Now, if you look at it, he has scored multiple marks in English in various semester, and the total is 331, 385 for mathematics. Like that, you are getting. Now, similarly, if I want the average of it, okay. Now, can I use the same formula here and go to select average? No, it won't give you the correct answer because there is a column in between called total, and you won't get the average of all semester. Instead, you will get an average of a number ranging from all semesters and including the total. So I want to use the formula separately, like equal to average. 1 minute, that is equal to average, and then open the bracket and select all the columns for which I want to find the average. I selected it, and similarly if I select here and drag here, so if I go to any of the cell and if I press F2, you will Excel will tell which are all the cells included for calculating this formula. Fair enough. Let me format it the same way. Now, if I want to do the sum of all this, let me just, I say it is total. Let me make it as bold. And I'm using here sum. I can use this way or I can select here and I can drag up to here. And if I want an average of the average, so go here, average. So on an average, he scored 91.7 in each semester of marks. So here, if you want an average of all the subjects semester wise, you can say average. Let me give a heading called average here, and then you say average. As we have learned in the column, same thing is applied here. You select only the subjects and close, and you get the average here. And if I copy this and select all these values and paste it by, let me copy it step by step. Copy can be done in two ways. One, you can keep the item selected in a cell and then press Ctrl C, and then wherever you want to paste it, press Ctrl V. Automatically it will be copied, or else you copy by right clicking and selecting copy, and wherever you want to paste it, right click and select the paste, so it will be pasted. So I'm copying all these things here. So this is the average total, and this is the average total of all the marks he has obtained here. Okay, now let me delete all these things for now so that we can learn our next thing of what we can do with the table. Let me delete this also for our understanding. Okay, now I have a table in which I have all the subjects and the marks he has obtained in every semester. So, what can I do with this data? I can do many things. I can sort these marks, I can filter these marks, everything I can do by I'm selecting this table. These are all, you can do it even without selecting, but better best practice is to select this and go to the sort and filter, and if you click on it, you can say, you can see filter. So as soon as I say filter, you will find an icon like a drop down in all the cells, header of the cells, what you have selected. So now, what is the advantage of this? If I click here, you have a pop-up menu opened in which you can either sort the data from smallest to the largest or largest to the smallest, or we'll look at this color again. So if I click here and say largest to the smallest, all the data is sorted according to the serial number, keeping the largest serial number on the top and the lowest serial number in the bottom. Let me revert it back by using the undo. And now what I want is, I want the data to be sorted based on the highest average on the top. So I'm selecting my drop down button in the average, and I'm going to the largest to the smallest, and I'm clicking. So in the mathematics, on an average, we got the maximum number of marks. Let me redo it again by pressing either Ctrl Z or by clicking the undo button. So what else we can do in this? I want to filter this data. So I want to filter this data based on any particular subject. So I go here and unselect everything. I just want to know what you scored in English and in physics. So I selected English and physics, and when I click, so this data is filtered based on only the selected subjects I have opted for. Now let me select all. As soon as I select all the data will come back. And now I want to see all the, let me just go to the total, and I want to see all the rows in which he has scored more than 350, for example. Then in that case, I can go to a number filter You can either select one by one, but if the number of data in your table are very large, so selecting one by one will be very difficult. So you can go here and go and say greater than, my value is greater than 350. If you see here, all the data displayed here are more than 350. So like this, you can do many things with the table. So let us learn one by one when we are going to use the formulas and tables in the real-time application. There is one more thing which we need to learn when we are using the formula. That is, when we are using the formula, we have been using a cell address. So let us see what are all the problems if you are using just a cell address and how to rectify it. To help us proceed further with our learning, I created a sample data of a small company which is having only 4 employees. And for the 4 employees, we have defined the basic salary and the allowance, and we are going to proceed further with how we can find the total salary and how can provide them a fixed percentage of increment. So let us see now. The first thing what I want to do is I want to find the total salary. So I can use this formula of add. That is, I am going to select the basic salary of the first employee, that is John Smith. Then I am going to plus, I am going to select the allowance. So that is, if you look at the formula, it is equal to C3 plus D3, and I'm pressing enter, and the total salary, including the basic and allowance, are calculated. Now, the same formula I want to apply for the rest of the cells. So I'm dragging. The formula is copied to all the cells below. Now, let me just beautify this a bit. So I'm going to select all these columns and make a border. And then I'm selecting these two and changing the border color. But now I want, for the current salary, I want a different color. And for the incremented salary, I want a different color. So I'm selecting the current salary box and I'm giving the color as this one. And I'm selecting the incremented salary and I'm selecting green as a color for that. Then I'm going to make it as bold. It looks somewhat better than before. Okay. So this total, I'm making it as bold so that I can understand it very well that this is the total. Now, the boss wants to give some increment. So he wants to give a fixed increment of 15% to everybody. So I am keeping here as proposed increment. So my proposed increment is 15%. Let me put it as 15%. So this is my proposed increment. So this is a fixed cell which I'm going to use for my formula. This 15% is what is the proposed increment. So how do I do that? So I have the data in a row, but I have the proposed increment percentage somewhere else. So how I will do that? So I'm selecting as equal to, and then I'm going to the basic because 15% of the increment is given for only basic. Let's assume. Okay. Then I'm pressing star and then I'm pressing and selecting the proposed increment percentage. So it has calculated as 105. So this is the incremented value. So it is not the actual basics, but from 700 rupees, now it is going to increase by 105 rupees. Okay, or dollar or whatever it may be. Now, how do I calculate the total basic which is incremented? So for that, what I'm going to do is, let me put this inside the bracket and then plus, again I'm going to add the basic. So now it is 805 rupees. Can I copy the same formula to all the other rows? Let me try it. and see whether it is working fine or not. I'm copying this formula and pasting it to the next row. Is it correct? No, it is not correct because it is 800 rupees and I want to give 15% increment, but then also it is coming as 800. Let us see what is the problem. If I see the formula, if I just press F2, it says the 800, the basic pay is selected, but when it is coming for the proposed percentage of increment, it is going to the next row, which is blank. So that is why it is considering it as 0 and it is not calculating. So if I'm copying this and pasting it to the next row, and if I press F2, you see that relatively the cell is moving to the next row. So what is this? Because the reference we are giving to the cell is called relative reference. So what do you mean by relative reference? Suppose if I am saying, if you go to this formula and see, it is referring to column C and cell 3 and the M2. And if you go here, as soon as I move to the next row, data in the formula also is moving to the left next row. So how do I fix it? So then there it comes something called an absolute reference. So in this, what is the absolute reference? My basic pay is changing according to the row, but my percentage of increment is always constant. So what is percentage of increment? It is in M2. So I need to, in the formula, I need to give a dollar symbol before the column name and the dollar symbol for the row number. So if I am going here and pasting it here, it calculates properly. Similarly, the same thing, if I am going to do, let me just call this as basic. And for the allowance, I'm not going to give 15% increment, but I'm going to give a little higher percentage of increment. So if there are 20 percentage is the increment the boss is deciding to give for the allowance, and if I go here and paste here, and so the formula is almost the same, right? Because we are going to increment it by a certain percentage. So if I go again, it is calculating only 15%, and it is not calculating 20%, but it is considering the allowance column or the allowance cell for the calculation. Why? Because in when we are doing our absolute reference, so we have given $m as well as $2. We have fixed both the columns as well as the row. So if I'm changing this, I made the column as a relative reference, but the row as a fixed reference, absolute reference. Now if I go and copy, so it has given 20% hike to the allowance alone. Now if I copy this and do here and let's validate it, so it is working correctly, and I can copy everything to the rest of the cells, and I can do a total of it. So for that, I don't need to write the formula once again because I have already written the formula for adding C3 plus D3. And if I copy this with Control C and paste here, it will automatically take the relative reference, and instead of C3 and D3, it will consider F3 and G3 and calculate it correctly. Now I can use the same logic of copying and pasting the formula to over here. Okay, now it is coming to a decimal place of 0.25, which I don't want. I want a rounded value. So I can decrease the decimals and make it a rounded value. We have covered most of the basics which are required to start our learning experience by developing a simple expense tracking application which can be used for your household expenses along with the budget and its tracking. We are also going to include the analytics in that Excel sheet so that you can have a track of how you are spending the money against your budget. You may be asking, is this the only thing required as a basic to learn Excel? No, it may not be the case because Excel is a very large application having too many features embedded into it. And we will be learning many things when we are developing this application, which will be very interesting for you. With this, let us end this basic session. Let us start from our tomorrow's episode on practically doing how to build an Excel application. And once again, let me request you all to subscribe to the channel and press the like button. In addition to that, we will be more happy if you can provide your comments, be it a suggestion or your doubts or question, whatever it may be. You can feel free to add the comments, and I will be personally answering all your questions and your comments. Thank you and welcome you all, and all the best for a successful learning experience. Thank you.